everyone, I'm Charlie from Dr. Wen, and welcome to yet another daily Doctor Who YouTube video. Today, as you can probably guess from the thumbnail, then I will be ranking all episode 1s of New Who, so that is Doctor Who since 2005. There are 12 of these episodes, and I won't be including the two-parters. I will just be doing the first part, so episode 1, and this won't count Christmas specials or any specials that, like on a streaming service, say that they're episode 1. I mean episode 1 of the main series. So this includes Rose, New Earth, Smith and Jones, Partners in Crime, The 11th Hour, The Impossible Astronaut, Asylum of the Daleks, Deep Breath, The Magician's Apprentice, The Pilot, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, and SPYFALL Part 1. I think episode 1s are quite strong episodes in general. I don't think any of them are bad, but the lower down ones are just pretty meh, and not as good as the higher up ones. So here I go with this list. I hope you enjoy. So in 12th place, then we have New Earth. You were probably expecting this. New Earth doesn't have the reputation for being a great Doctor Who episode, and most people don't really like it. It's definitely the worst on this list. It isn't very memorable at all, but upon a rewatch I did at least like it a little bit, mainly because of the setting. I really like New Earth, and it must have required a lot of world building to go into creating this planet and the hospital where it's set mainly. The face of Bo is also returning for this episode, and he appears again in Gridlock, you know, with the You Are Not Alone arc that he has, and it's the second story in the trilogy of New Earth, it's called. It started in Series 1 with The End of the World, and then Series 2 with New Earth, and Series 3 with Gridlock. So, yes, this is the middle part of that, and I really like it, actually. Well, I really like the setting of it, I mean. I think it's interesting that in the Doctor's second episode only, where he's supposed to be making his first impressions on the viewers, then he gets possessed by Cassandra, who I don't really see much need for. I don't really think that was very necessary, and not a wise choice to make, because I saw the 10th Doctor as pretty weird for the next few episodes after this. But yeah, this was okay, just a pretty meh episode. Next up, in 11th place, then we have Partners in Crime, the opening episode of Series 4 of Doctor Who. Lots of people don't really have very strong opinions on this. I'm the same. I give this an exact 7. It's more of a character piece with the return of Donna and the chemistry between the Doctor and Donna, which is flawless, by the way. That's why it's not a 0. This is what boosted it up to a 7. This also has quite a funny scene with the window, and they're both like moving their hands and mouths, and no one really knows what the other's saying. And then afterwards, then the villains are just kind of looking at them. I thought that was very funny. It's a very light-hearted episode as well, quite an easy watch to just put on the telly, and you don't have to concentrate very hard for it, unlike episodes like, say, Dark Water, Death in Heaven, for example, just more complicated episodes. You don't really need to pay attention to it that much, which is quite good. But I don't really like the Adipose as villains. I thought it's a bit silly, and I think it should have raised the stakes a bit more for the first story in Series 4. But Series 4 is a brilliant series, and this is probably one of the weakest in it. In 10th place, then we have The Woman Who Fell to Earth, the opening episode of Series 11, and Jodie Whittaker's very first story as the 13th Doctor. This is, again, a story I don't really have very strong feelings towards, but I do think it's a significant improvement to Partners in Crime. I've given this an exact 8, rather than an exact 7. The 13th Doctor is brilliant in this, and she clicks immediately. I really like the 13th Doctor, and I really don't understand the hate her and her episodes get. I don't really understand why people don't really like it. I think it's one of the best series the show has ever done. One of the best eras, I mean. So yes, this was probably the biggest change the show had since, arguably since The 11th Hour, or even Rose or Spearhead from Space, things like that. It's not very memorable. When someone mentions 13th Doctor episodes, then I picture episodes like Rosa, Kablam, Spyfall, and Praxius, my 4 favourite 13th Doctor episodes. So, things like that. But, yeah, it's not that memorable. Tim Shaw is a weak villain. I think it's actually spelled Tzimsho. He's a bit of a weak villain, and I wish, just like with Series 4, they raised the stakes a bit for the very first of her stories. Grace's death, Graham's wife, I thought that was quite unnecessary, and I wished she'd had a bit of an arc through this series, like appearing in the Earth episodes, just kind of solidify her character a bit before they killed her off. I thought that would have made it a little bit more emotional. Either way, it's a really nice introduction to the 13th Doctor and her companions, although it is rather plot-driven. In 9th place we have Smith and Jones. I've given it an 8.4. You can probably tell that I don't think too highly of the 3 episode 1s of the 10th Doctor's era, which is true. In the bottom 4, 3 of them have been 10th Doctor episodes, but this is still quite good with an 8.4. Martha Jones is a brilliant companion, and even if it is an unpopular opinion, I prefer her to Rose. I quite like how there's no romance between them at all, they're just friends. This is more of a character piece, a lot like Partners in Crime, but I still really like it. It mainly focuses on the chemistry between Martha and the Doctor, but this introduces the Jadoon and sets up some more earthy, sort of alien, mysterious things that that appear in Turn Left. So, that's kind of one of the things, among others, like all the alien invasions, that sort of RTD era style. But this is still quite a good episode, and I do really like it. In 8th place is the pilot with an 8.4 as well. I think this is definitely the weakest episode 1 of Peter Capaldi's era as the 12th Doctor, but I do quite like how it has a fresh slate, because this episode is even called The Pilot. It's like trying to do a soft reboot of the show. I don't really see why this was necessary, since this was Stephen Moffat's last series, and I think if he did a soft reboot at all in this, then he probably should have done it in Series 8, not before his last series, because we had a hard reboot for Series 11. I don't really think that was that necessary, but I still quite like how it's kind of been wiped clean. I do like the idea of the Doctor having a holiday for 70 years at this university, while all his past selves did things for him. But when he saw that fuel, he realised he caught up. I did quite like that. Bill is a very good companion. I think she is not quite as good as Clara, but still a very good companion. Much better than the likes of Rose and Amy. This one does have quite a weird villain with the sentient fuel. I don't really think this needed a villain, and should have just been focused on the Doctor and Bill, in my opinion. So we're getting on to some very good episodes now. In 7th place, we have The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch. No, just The Magician's Apprentice, with an 8.5. This is the opener to Series 9, and it's one of 3 openers that are part 1 of a 2-parter. I like this just as much as the second part, and here's why. I think I like Davros's backstory. It kind of delves deep into the backstory of one of the greatest villains that has been quite mysterious throughout lots of the show, especially in Classic Who. He's a very interesting character. The hands in the ground in the scene where he went back in time to save Davros, I thought that was really creepy, and I do quite like the whole moral dilemma that the 12th Doctor has, whether to save Child Davros or not. I think this is really underrated. It gets a lot of hate in the community, and I don't really see why. I do really like the Skaro reveal with with Missy and Clara, and the 12th Doctor as well. I do really like that, and that cliffhanger is awesome, where we think that he says exterminate and kills Child Davros, but he doesn't, as we see. In 6th place we have the very first episode in all of New Who and in Series 1 and of the 9th Doctor and of Rose. This is an extremely hard reboot, probably the biggest hard reboot since Spearhead from Space, and it is Rose with an 8.5. This is arguably one of the biggest changes the show has ever had. Like I just said, the 9th Doctor is immediately, from that very first line, he says, "Run." I've always really liked the 9th Doctor. I thought very highly of him. Rose is a brilliant companion. Let me rephrase that. Rose is a brilliant companion in Series 1. I hate her in Series 2. I absolutely detest her. But in Series 1, I think she isn't that bad. I do like the Autons. It's a nice callback to the 3rd Doctor's era, because we hadn't seen them since the 1971 episode Terror of the Autons. So at that point it would have been 34 years since they were last seen. This does have pretty bad CGI, but I do like to cut it a bit of slack, because it was 2005, over 15 years ago this was broadcast now. So, there we go. In 5th place we have the very first episode of Peter Capaldi's time as the 12th Doctor, and of Series 8, and that is Deep Breath. I've given this an exact 9. Firstly, this is a great introduction to the 12th Doctor. Most people didn't really like him until Series 9 or 10, but for me, he immediately just clicked. I really liked Series 8, and I think very highly of that. The Half-Faced Man is a good and interesting villain. I'm glad they didn't just stick to some of the old villains like Silurians and Sontarans, Daleks, Cybermen, Ice Warriors. I'm glad they thought of something original. And it's really good. It starts off the whole Missy arc and the Promised Land, the Nethersphere, that we eventually get answers to by the finale. When he goes to the Promised Land and Missy introduces herself, that is really good. The Paternoster Gang is always good, and I really like to see them, and the Victorian setting isn't boring. Lots of them are set in Victorian London or Yorkshire, and I find it really boring, but I actually quite like the whole setting in this. In 4th place we have SPYFALL Part 1. I've also given this an exact 9. This is a really cool concept, the Doctor becoming a spy. I'm surprised it wasn't done earlier. Lots of people don't really like it because they think it's sort of cheesy. I don't really like it. I thought this was actually a really strong episode. The 13th Doctor is as brilliant as ever in this, and her humour is on point in this episode. I really like it. The Master reveal is really good with the O Master. He is my favourite Master. I'll set a card here. Go check out my Master review video. I did really like that reveal in the cliffhanger. The Doctor wears a bow tie in it, which is always brilliant, and a nice callback to some previous episodes kind of ties it back a bit to the 11th and 12th Doctor era. And I do quite like the whole mystery element to it with the tech company and they don't know what they're hiding. I thought that was all really good. In 3rd place we have the very first episode of Series 6, which is The Impossible Astronaut. I've given this a 9.2. This is a really good idea, I think, having this huge overarching plot that probably had never been done to such a scale before, and was really complicated actually, probably the most complicated thing Doctor Who had ever done. So yeah, the Doctor dying arc, that was really good. The Silents were great villains actually, they're some of my favourites, and I really wish they could come back. This also has a great cliffhanger at the end where that girl that kept on calling the president, I thought that was a really good cliffhanger as to how she was an astronaut, and the whole two-parter thing is really good. I'm glad they didn't try to cram it all into one story, because then it would be much lower down on this list. And next up, in 2nd place, we have the 11th Hour, which I've given a 9.2. This is more of a character-driven story than a plot-driven story. The 11th Doctor, played by Matt Smith, clicks immediately for this. He is brilliant, and is one of my top 5 favourite Doctors. Amy is a really good companion. At first I thought Amelia would be, young Amy. I thought that she would be, and I thought that'd be really interesting to have a child companion, seeing all the universe and all the interesting things through a child's eyes. But then I was a little bit disappointed when she grew up, but she's still a very good companion. Amy and Rory, the older ones, they are still okay, but I definitely prefer young Amy. The Crack in the Wall arc started, and I don't know, I think it's one of the weaker arcs and overarching plot lines, but it's still quite good, and the Atraxi are very good villains. I quite like the design of the whole glass ship with the eye in the middle. I thought that was pretty cool. So, yeah, I really like it. In 1st place, then we have the very first episode of Series 7, Asylum of the Daleks. You probably weren't expecting this because it's a very, very underrated episode in my opinion. Lots of people, especially within Reddit and YouTube, really don't like Asylum of the Daleks, and I don't really see why, to be honest. I really like it. It's a good idea having this planet where all the broken Daleks go. I thought it was really good. The Dalek humans are pretty weird, but cool. It's probably what puts this down for me at the moment. It's on 9.3. It sets up the Impossible Girl arc, which would be more important as well in the Snowmen and all of Series 7B. And I don't really like as well how Amy and Rory like making up and getting back together. I thought that was kind of glossed over, and a plot point we didn't really need. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this list, and I will see you tomorrow. Next time. Today, I ranked all episode 1s of New Who. Tomorrow, I will rank all episode 2s. I'll see you then, and goodbye.